Let's call the regular meeting of the Village Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any additions, deletions, or changes to the proposed agenda for this evening? Apparently none. Roll call.
President Schneider,
Present.
President Pro Tem Dyke, Councilmember Kolka,
Present.
Councilmember Feldman,
Present.
Councilmember Glasser,
Present.
Councilmember Kuligowski, Councilmember Steffler.
Present.
Was there any communication from Mr. Kuligowski as to attending this evening's meeting? Nothing? Okay. David, anything? Nothing? No. Okay. Thank you. All right, so communications. So we heard from Great Lakes Water Authority that Highland Park paid its $1 million as a first step to deal with what's called the Highland Park Bad Debt Recovery Credits. They're indicating there was a somewhat wordy explanation regarding it, and then essentially what amounted to an invoice showing receipt of the $1 million, $874,000 towards sewer and $126,000 towards water. That's dollars. And then below that communication, there's an indication how that payment affects the village of Almont. Kim, could you just give us the impact?
Yes, the recovery credit for the Village of Almont is $100.
Every 100 helps.
Right.
So that's that. We don't know what will happen from there, but at least it's something that got addressed, and it's an incredibly difficult topic because Highland Park doesn't have any money. Okay, so moving on to consent agenda. Let's see here. So the regular meeting minutes for our June 20th meeting. So there was something, and yeah. Where the heck is it? Communication. Oh, okay, thank you. Communications, fourth line down. I was talking about those mining of gravel and sand bills that had been floating around the House of Representatives. And the third line down, the three bills. The last entry was dated June 9th, in which a summary of the three bills, and I believe that next word should be was presented to the committee. And then lastly, one other thing, in council comments, and actually it was the comments from Councilmember Feldman, next to the last line that begins with enforcement taken on ATVs and golf carts being, I presume that word is supposed to be driven in the village. Sure.
So, second line, where it says power to sustain EV chargers, as it could take the amount of government homes. Add in those. And that's worst case, but
On the side notes, the Berkeley Library has 2 EV chargers on it.
Okay.
Been to Chicago, and all the grocery stores have in place of like handicap parking, they got EV chargers. All the grocery stores.
Some time. Then, yeah, how long does it take to charge? It seems like it's such a long ways to go yet, but who knows? But AI will probably cure it all. By tomorrow, I'll be electrically charged.
I do have some insight to that, but I can talk about it at roundtable. Because
Okay.
there's a change coming.
A change related to AI.
No,
Oh.
EV charger.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. Anybody else on minutes for June 20th meeting? Okay, if not, then let's go to general fund. Major streets, local streets, Parks and Recreation Fund, Downtown Development Authority Fund, what is this one? Central Municipal Activity Fund. What that one is? Contribution towards the sewer fund.
It's the
Yeah.
ARPA funds, the
Okay.
stimulus grant fund.
Okay. Sewer fund, water fund, equipment fund, payroll register report. Entertain a motion. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Take that back. I'm not done yet. DDA Executive Director Angela Edwards report for the month of June. She's doing a very good job, by the way. If everything's relative compared to others, she's doing a terrific job. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember Steffler. Okay, to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Objections? Unanimously approved by all council members in attendance. Next on our agenda is for public comment time for any item that is on our regular agenda for this evening. Is there any public comment? Being none. Okay, regular agenda item number 1, council member resignation. I forgot to bring my hanky. Jackie.
This has been a hard decision for me, but I know that I needed to present that. I did close on my house here in Almont, so I am no longer a resident, so I know the rules. And but I do want to thank everybody. I mean, everybody has helped me and educated me, and I've learned a lot about Almont when I thought I knew a lot about Almont. So it's great working with everybody. I just want to say thank you. Thank you.
But a lot of integrity and decency and good common thinking as far as the citizens of this community, and having you on has been a real plus for us. And you being gone will obviously leave some void, and we certainly will miss you, but come visit. Are they going to put a border
wonderful.
wall?
There's your first heckler right there.
Border wall between Lapeer County and St. Clair County that you might have to travel over.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Jay. Well, actually, don't I have to accept the resignation and then
Yeah, there has
council
to be a
approval?
motion to accept the resignation effective.
I'll make the motion that we accept the motion of Councilmember Jackie.
Okay.
My brain froze. Jackie Calco's resignation.
Get it over.
As of the end of this meeting, dated July 5th, 2023.
Just a matter of protocol, Kim. Wasn't I supposed to accept it and then seek council ratification?
No,
No?
it's usually just been a motion.
Okay, that's fine. So motion by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember Steffler, to accept Jackie Kalka's resignation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Objections? Being none, and unanimously approved by all council members in attendance. Regular agenda item number 2, Planning Commission member
Mr.
status.
Schneider, before you go on to agenda number 2, should is it consensus to advertise into the Tri-City Times with a deadline of July 26th? Because we're required to appoint in 30 days.
So put it on the website.
Yep, website, Facebook.
Yep.
Is that consensus for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay,
Consensus, yep.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, but yeah, I think I just took it as a matter of course, but yes, we needed to do that. And the 30 days is somewhat farcical, but whatever. Been through that before. So our regular agenda item number 2, Planning Commission member status. So that, the fact that that issue was brought before council this evening and was dealt with at our last council meeting is because we had a planning commission member who had moved from the Almont community and from Lapeer County. And I think apparently Ms. Kiesler just received the resignation letter from that planning commission member, Bernie Kalka, this morning. Yeah. So it's not in our packet, but he did resign. So it's no longer an issue before council. It would have been interesting to see how it turned out, but it's resolved. But it will be in front of Planning Commission tomorrow evening, and I anticipate that there's going to be discussion about amending the Planning Commission bylaws with regard to the residency issue. I think it'll have to be carefully worded in terms of should be village residents, but perhaps some conditional language that if we can't find members, we have to turn to my favorite statute, the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. But that's a discussion I expect would take place tomorrow evening. And there's been discussion here of late, whether it's been a planning commission or here, about the local control issue. And I think that's part of what would be discussed tomorrow evening at Planning Commission. So I just wanted to inform council that that's likely to be coming up. And if any of you want to attend and watch the verbiage, what's going on tomorrow's Planning Commission meeting, that'll be that. Anybody else have any reason to further discuss regular agenda item number 2?
Just real quick, so if the planning commission does propose to change their bylaws, then does it come back to council for ratification?
According to our clerk, no. She said it's apparently a sovereign act, that they don't need us. Right?
Is that true for all of our committees? You can just change the bylaws without council input or ratification?
I believe so, yes. I think as a matter of just of transparency, we have, brought it, like the ZBA just changed their bylaws. That was presented to council after it was amended, just so everyone is aware. Yeah. But there is no ratification by council.
Is that statutory? I mean,
That's according to our bylaws.
Say, 'cause
Oh, the villages.
Yeah,
No.
well, the
We have an
planning
ordinance.
commission bylaws, because it's Article 9 amendments. These rules may be amended by the commission by a concurring vote pursuant to subsection 6.8 during any regular meeting, provided that all members have received an advance copy of the proposed amendments at least 3 days prior to the meeting at which such amendments are to be considered.
So that's its present bylaws. That's interesting to me from the perspective that it's almost a jurisdictional issue that the Plan Commission has the authority to say, well, this is what we're doing, and we don't need any further approval.
I wholeheartedly agree.
That seems
it's a
odd to me.
subcommittee of the council, yet it can act autonomously without council input. That doesn't connect the dots for me.
And everything, I have the same vision of it. Everything comes back here. I mean, we essentially appoint, I appoint and ratify. So everything comes back here and we're appointing these members, but they don't have to come back to us at all. it doesn't seem right either. And I suppose that could be another amendment of the bylaws, but it seems to me like, yeah, it should be coming back here.
I mean, because you could slowly evolve that to where council has no say over any of the committees. And then you ask what's the purpose of council?
We are the elected parties, the only ones that are elected.
Everybody else is appointed.
Right, right. So it all stems from here. So from that standpoint, it should be as you're indicating. That's the same reaction. That's why I was asking, is there statute on it? Just controlled by their bylaws? Like, no, doesn't sound right. And yeah, membership is just membership of the bylaws is just they're appointed. It doesn't really give any criteria. And so that's one of the issues that we have to address at Planning Commission tomorrow evening. The whole, should you be a resident of the village would only make sense to me. So
I guess that's my biggest rub is you could say you don't have to be a resident of Melmont. Up to 2, according to what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing as the village council that we can say, no, we want to make sure that they're residents of the village or township. You people elected us to speak for you. The people who aren't elected are going to say they don't have to live here.
there's that. Yeah. And
But there are safeguards. I mean, they could recommend, absolutely, they could recommend to president to appoint, but he still has the power to appoint, and you all still have the power to ratify that appointment. So you do have some of that control where you won't have 7 members on the planning commission that are not village residents.
And well, so the village administration and I took somewhat divergent views, which I'm glad we didn't get into tonight, because I didn't want to wear boxing gloves with Kim and David. And the village administration position seemed to be that he should be allowed to stay on. And what part of what was interesting to note is a motion that was passed at Planning Commission to leave Bernie on is it actually said in the Planning Commission, it actually says in the Planning Commission notes of our last Planning Commission meeting that in honor of his past service. That's passed. Now we're going forward, and that's ignoring reality and history. When people move from this community, they normally move on to that new community. And do you think that interest is going to stay? Right now, sure, he had all these close connections, but they live somewhere else, and eventually they're going to be taking an interest in Berlin Township or Ellington or Capac or whatever. Just being realistic. So the dynamics for the community change, and the dynamics for those individuals change. And so that's, to me, is like the enabling act is, but it's discretionary. I mean, we don't have to do it. It means that if we were so inclined, we could do it. I'm just not inclined. As I indicated at the last meeting, I didn't think it was the right thing to do, but because it was a pretty big deal, and I suppose that out of respect for Mr. Kalka, because he was an excellent member of the community, I thought, I'd really like council's input. I just thought it was the right thing to do, even though I made clear as I didn't think it was the right thing to do from a governing standpoint. So I think all that has to be addressed. So it would seem that Tim and I would be there tomorrow night, and I think he said we're going to be there Friday evening too. So for the next 3 nights, we're just going to
Part
stay.
2.
We're just going to stay here, sleep here tonight. That should be raised with Planning Commission as well. The bylaws issue, and that it should be coming back before council. It makes no sense because, again, they're just appointed, and there are some very valuable members, longstanding members in that Planning Commission. But it's like, we're the elected officials. So things are going well. Maybe they reelect us, and maybe they don't. So I think we'll try tackling both those issues tomorrow evening. So thanks for your input, Pete. Appreciate it. Okay, so I think that resolves our regular agenda item number 2. The regular agenda item number 3, liability insurance audit. I think we were supposed to decide deductibles or something like that. Who's making presentation on that?
We're going to tag team. I'll start off. In your packet, you see a memo from the Decker Agency that lists what types of credit we might be able to acquire if we increase our deductible. And those credits are very minimal in size. And one of the things that council asked us to do was go back and look at prior claims to see what the cost was, et cetera, and if there was any benefit to having a higher deductible in the past. And Kim has compiled that information for us, and I think it's an eye-opening assessment.
So, for example, for the 2020-2021 fiscal year, we had 5 claims totaling $24,977.45. If we upped the deductible from $2,500 to $5,000, we would be spending $21,656.68 to save $646. And even on the lowest claim year, it was $1,200.
So we're better off standing pat and then making individual decisions if it's cheaper to put in a claim or just pay it out.
Correct.
But that's what I deduced from looking at these numbers.
So each claim would come before us and we
Yeah.
make that decision. I presume that would just not be village administration. I believe it would come to council.
And half of those claims over the last 10 years were related to police vehicle accidents, hitting deer, et cetera. We've actually implemented something that was suggested to us by Dustin, as far as, putting bumpers on the cars that the county did to reduce their overall cost. We've done that, so we've taken some proactive measures to reduce those types of claims going forward. And fortunately, for the last year and a half, we've avoided deer. So, but even some of the general liability claims fall into the same category that Kim just outlined, where, the overall benefit of a higher deductible is basically a wash and might actually cost us money in the long run.
To come back before council each time a claim is presented. Sounds like it could be handled administratively, but that's good.
Down. I would think it, as long as David has the approval, sees the claim and approves whether or not to issue it to the insurance.
So it would
Be
be
done
more efficient.
administratively.
Like it's like maybe a really big claim. Somebody got killed or something awful.
Then that's an automatic.
I mean, there's
right? Yeah.
there's a threshold for approval, right? There's a threshold for approval, right? So if it was a big claim, then the normal process would be come here anyway.
Just tell them to slow down. At night.
Those deer
Drive
just
slow.
don't care.
Take care of that issue. Okay. And that takes care of regular agenda for this evening. Now is public comment time for any issue that is not on our regular agenda this evening. Is there any public comment as to non-agenda? Being none? Oops, sorry. No, it's okay. Step up, please.
David Feltz, village resident. Got my water bill over the weekend. The period of time was April through June 30, postmarked June 29th. Don't know how that works. Take your word for it. Behind every number, though, there was an A. My understanding is that's an actual reading. Interesting, though. All the numbers ended in 3 zeros. Statistically, probably not likely. Went downstairs and looked at my meter. My meter said 12776. The bill said 12800. How is it the actual reading was higher than what my meter said, and it was billed before the end of the period? I don't know if I get answers tonight or if I just address my questions. That's my issue. The other issue I would have is, when are the sidewalks in West Winds going to be finished? The subdivision's been finished for years now. We still have areas that don't have sidewalks. Thanks for your time.
Where are the areas in West Winds that don't have sidewalks? Where's the area within West Winds that do not have sidewalks? Is it like where the ditches are, where they don't fully come out to the street? Or is there, I mean, I know there's one. I know
You go down Jonathan,
Yeah,
and where it makes the loop to the left, neither side of that loop have sidewalks. If you go up, I think it's West Winds, there's another area that doesn't have sidewalks. There's a few areas.
outlets that don't have it going from the street where the ditch is.
I'm talking about along the whole side of the house.
There's one vacant lot with the egress to that back area. That one doesn't have a sidewalk. But I'll just double check Jonathan, because I run.
Yeah, take a look.
I run all the time and don't remember an area that doesn't have one. Okay.
Ask a quick question about the water bill. Did you contact the village office to ask questions?
No, it happened over the weekend, so.
Okay.
uh,
And would you recommend that's something to do, is to call and ask?
Contact us tomorrow and we'll go through it. Okay?
Thank you.
Interestingly enough, my water bills show the very same thing. Every single bill, 00000. Seriously?
Yeah, because we charged in 1,000 gallons.
Yeah,
So
but it's not the same usage every month, but if you look at the bills, you would think that was the case. Now, makes no sense. I just don't have the time to go, what the heck is this? So does that end up being in Brian's?
no, it's administration.
All right, yeah. Maybe you can explain it to me too. But I see that every time I go, what is this? Okay. Thank you for coming, Mr. Phelps. Appreciate it. And Tim will definitely run into West Winds. Always does. So our agenda indicates that we're going to be heading into closed session very likely here. So why don't we go around the horn and take a due comment time at this point in time. Mr. Trent, anything to bring to council?
Just a couple of quick items. Number one, you may have noticed that your restaurant options are more limited this week. Some of our entrepreneurs are on vacation, and so there's fewer options to pick from. But some of those entities will be open tomorrow. The Rustic Bluebird will be back open tomorrow. Maria's will be open on Friday, and Mikey's is down for the week. So plan accordingly. You probably heard that the legislature passed a budget last week before July 1st. Kudos to them. It's been a couple of years since that's happened that quickly. And unfortunately, in our efforts to try to get an earmark approved for our benefit, it turns out that pending some further analysis by Fleece and Vandenbrink, they are double checking to see which of the 68 communities that received a public infrastructure grant were represented by the majority party in Lansing this year. And it looks like that anybody else got shut out based on my quick perusal of the communities and not being totally up to speed on the redistricting, but knowing some of the communities that used to be Republican and then switched after the redistricting. From my quick overview, it looks like their assessment is right on, that the Democrats took control of the budget and took care of their own backyard, so to speak. There is the opportunity, based on past practice, that the legislature will pass a supplemental bill before Christmas break, and that will be another opportunity for us to try to maneuver and request an earmark for our East and West St. Clair infrastructure project. So hope it's all not lost in that regard, but nothing came through here in this past week, other than the fact that as part of that bill, the funds for the DNR Trust Fund grant for the acquisition of 605 South Main Street was approved, but those funds will not become available until October 1st when the new budget kicks in. So, but we're going through the process of the paperwork and submitting information to the DNR, and then we'll be proceeding with an appraisal of the property as well, because the grant is contingent on whatever the appraisal is as far as a 75% match. So we'll keep you updated on that as we go through that process.
Speaking of the legislature, so apparently the mining, gravel, and sand bills did not get presented. So for the moment, they appear to be dead, but those powerful interests, they never go away. They'll be back, but not in the immediate future. So that was good to hear. I was particularly enamored with a recent bill that was presented in the House, that it's potentially a 5-year felony.
Yep.
If for using the improper pronouns. And if we thought the world was going insane, that's proof of it. It's like, seriously? It's like,
5-year felony, $10,000
yeah,
fine.
$10,000. Yeah.
Yep.
You got to be kidding me. It's like, oh my God. You read that and your jaw hits the ground. It's like, they, he, she, it, we. I don't believe in discriminating against them, but seriously, those are the big issues that we have to deal with. Oh my God. Sorry, David, I went off on a tangent. It's, yeah. Legislative front is delicious. Kim?
Sir?
Wayne?
Just one thing. Had a lot of residents, probably within the last 2 weeks, just really issuing, like more or less talking about the concern that MedStar is now pulled out and contingent that we have to depend on.
Yes, yes.
So I've had quite a few people that are just, especially the seniors, are worried about time that, Lapeer could get there, et cetera. So they wanted to see if we could talk about it, or, what our thoughts are about, having MedStar brought back in, or what are some other options?
I didn't know that had happened and that MedStar was pulling out. So now it's a township issue and they have total control of it, and the township's going. I think what MedStar said, we want $200,000 then because insurance is not going to cover it and we're losing our tails here. And the township said,
Right. And then there was some feuding.
yeah. So now the ambulances have to come from the city of Lapeer.
Correct.
So even if you
Right, technically.
Dryden
Yeah.
is the closest
By
one.
Rosie's over there.
Yep.
Is where they're parked. But still, that's what the concern was.
yeah, but it's a legitimate concern. I mean, lives.
We still have Elmont Fire on duty, right, for response. They're supposed to be our first response. MedStar and Lapeer County are supposed to be support and transport.
I've had Bob Parcello show up at the place where I live numerous occasions, and I'm not even sure he's a defibrillator. So I don't know if he has actual life-saving capabilities. He carries a good guy. He's right there, but he's not an ambulance guy. So it is a significant issue, and it is, if you look at it, outrageous. And the township doesn't seem to be fazed by it at all. How can that be?
But did the township have to? They had to break contract with Lapeer County to allow MedStar in, right? Yeah. And they passed the millage, which we all pay in our taxes for Lapeer County EMS now.
And that was one of the residents' concerns, the truck and Dryden's call. Right, who comes?
Well, if Dryden gets pulled,
Well, or like they happen to be at the same time, but like two calls come in.
Right.
What do you
yeah.
do?
Well, so I can't speak for Lapeer County. I was an EMT for 5 years. So whenever we got pulled, let's say you were on a county line, the next closest would split the distance. So you would leave station and then sit halfway between your call area and the one you're covering for the rig that gets pulled.
So that would potentially put you further out, potentially.
Yeah, it puts you in between too, so it might add a few minutes to your response
And that
time.
was what their concern was. Somebody, a few minutes is,
Website don't have a heart attack? And it's not, it seems to me that a number of years ago, if you remember, Tim, that there was discussion, I think at the village level, whether we would want to assess a millage for dedicated to ambulance service. Seems to me we did a number of years back.
Looked at it, but it was very expensive.
Yeah,
It was out of our realm.
that's the problem.
yeah, that's what I get. I heard there was a bunch of feuding that was kind of happened between all that,
Hmm.
the township and that stuff. So I don't know if there's something that can maybe be smoothed over.
I mean, basically, it seems like it would have to be addressed and tackled by the township, and it's totally within their bailiwick.
Right.
Well, we'd have,
Should have the funds to do it.
well, you would
Yes.
think,
Right.
yeah.
That's probably one of the most essential services they would provide.
Sure, MedStar wasn't getting the call volume that they wanted. I mean, they did just buy 2 brand new helicopters, so.
I mean, I don't know the authenticity of that $200,000 figure, whether it was asking too much, but they know the position that they're in. So I would just presume that that's what they would need to be able to provide, continue to provide that service. So you could engage Mr. Bowman in some very positive conversation, I presume.
Try to be as positive as possible.
Well, at least discussion, and hopefully he's open to discussion and what his thoughts are, so that we could at least we could report something back to our village residents. It's like,
Even if the least costly route is to have a few firefighters go through the paramedic program, so that we had trained paramedics on call over there.
And I think that's the big concern.
Yeah.
To your point, who's going to show up at my door?
Isn't there MFRs on there?
Yep. Yeah. But that's a big, so the MFR, so you have first aid, MFR, EMT, specialist, paramedic. So paramedic is ALS, Advanced Life Support. It's all of the people that work for Lapeer County EMS start out EMT, you're a rider, you work with the paramedic. And the medics are really in control.
interesting side note on that topic. Had a client who was EMT, said in the city of Detroit, and he was no longer in the city of Detroit, but he asserted with great vigor that he had PTSD from being an EMT down in Detroit. He's probably right. I mean, I didn't disagree with him that he had PTSD because his behavior demonstrated that. Yeah, you're right. You properly diagnosed yourself. But that was somewhat fascinating from the standpoint of what a tough job that is. And you've done it, so you.
Paramedic is, I mean, they have almost the same control as an ER doctor as far as administering drugs and life-saving support. So
Times when you can't save a life, you just have a body. Yeah, that's tough. I certainly remember from my younger days of being in touch with either doctors or nurses and how they always had to be clinical and couldn't allow their emotions to play into their duties. And then, of course, then when they were not on duty, they were wild childs because it just, oh, I can just let my emotions go now. It was quite amazing. Anyhow, so you all set? Pete, anything more?
Just a few things. Any progress on flower pot designs? I know that you were working with somebody for new flower pot designs on the bridge to the south.
Yes, they were able to come up with a design that does not impinge the sidewalk clearance. It'll be upright, hanging on the rail. And we are waiting for MDOT to approve our request for a right-of-way. They've basically asked for the same kind of information we're discussing here tonight. They'd like to see a sketch of the pot and, the dimensional aspects. So we're going to send that to them on Monday and resubmit our right-of-way request, which we believe will be approved. They kind of indicated it was approved, but now they put a hold on it with, wanting the paperwork. So.
Okay. Second thing is, I had a resident stop me and asked what they should do. They have a barn behind their house in the village, which I know there's not too many barns in the village, but the roof is caving in and there seems to be multiples. She said more than 10 raccoons living in the barn and coming out the roof and sides, and they're getting into their yard and stuff. So I thought I would ask, what should the advice be to this resident to address? It's not their barn, it's behind their property, but it's dilapidated, it's falling in. Should they call the village office? I don't know whose barn it is.
Yeah, if they could reach out to me and provide the details as far as the address so that we can identify who the homeowner is, and we can then work with the homeowner that has the barn to encourage them to contract with a animal control firm to resolve that issue.
She's worried because she has 2 dogs, and the dogs keep, the raccoons are in the yard, dogs go out, doesn't want dogs getting bit by raccoons or raccoons killed by the dogs. So it's kind of, I can understand that.
Do interact.
They don't like each other too much.
I had a husky that killed 3 raccoons in a week. It's like, ooh. But,
And the last thing, so that EV charging thing. So just to clarify, that is the 10 houses of power. That's for DC fast charge. So that's like the best in class. So a standard fast charger takes 350 kilowatts of power on DC charging. AC charging is a little bit less. It's about the same as a whole house, one charger. However, there's 3 standards in the US, and that's why I said I would bring it up now. And one of the standards is Tesla did their own thing and said, we're not going to follow everybody else's standard. We're going to do our own thing. Well, the other OEMs now are kind of getting in line to accept their standard, which is a little less power. But it's still 480 volts at the charger. It'll take about 30 minutes to get an additional 100 miles for your vehicle. It takes 4 hours to get half charge in a Tesla and 10 hours to get a full charge. So nobody's going to be sitting in a parking lot, I hope, for 10 hours. And 4 hours seems like a long time. But just to give you some details of what that would mean. Personally, and talking with people that I work with, and to your point, Jackie, all of those places that you see there's companies out there that come in and put in EV chargers, and they work with the business owner because they're going to make money from those, right? They have to buy the power from the power company. They charge a recharge fee. I don't think personally it's Elmont Village's best interest to take that on as a business case. If there's businesses in town that want to contract with Electrify America or one of those places to put in an EV charger, good for them. They can make some money maybe. but it also takes a parking spot in their parking lot or two. And then they're responsible for the maintenance. So probably one of the biggest complaints we hear is those chargers are not maintained. There's no standard required right now. So a lot of times they don't even work once they're a year old, because people, I mean, you see how people treat a gas pump. Now think about something that isn't going to leak gas on the floor. They just leave the charger on the ground and in puddles, and sometimes they hang it back up, sometimes they don't. Cables get run over. So somebody's got to maintain all of that.
That particular note of EVs, I read an article last week that in the state of Michigan, the number of EV vehicles doubled last year. It's just under 37,000 throughout the entire state. So how many are in our region? Not quite sure, but the number is growing, but it's not obviously making a huge impact in the marketplace in Michigan yet. So.
The OEMs are struggling with it. I mean, GM sold 75 Hummers last quarter. They planned to sell 10,000. So, and the only reason I know that number is because we sold them 10,000 parts. That's all.
Tesla sales are booming. Whatever that means.
That's all.
Okay, Tim?
Yeah, because the summer season will up, but MDOT has graciously had the light working all day at the bank, at the old bank crossing. So, I complained about it, so I figured I better bring it up and say at least it's working and it makes a difference during the midday. Because I've seen kids trying to cross there too, and it makes it safer. I don't understand it.
Yeah, just a couple things. First is that I will not be at the next meeting. I'll be on vacation. So make sure it's a long one. Just kidding. Don't do that. And then the second thing I wanted to talk about was that on Sunday around 1 o'clock, I drove through town, and at the gas station, Speedy Q is the one that on Main Street, but not on the corner. Speedway's on the
Come
corner.
across from my office.
Yeah, so this is Speedy Q. I saw emergency vehicles there, look like firefighters on the scene. And as I was driving by, observed one of the firefighters look like they were kicking oil dry into the storm sewer, presumably as part of the response that was going on. So my daughter was with me, so I had her text Brian. Hands-free, very safe. And it was dictating, like, hey, what's going on, basically. And so there was a call there. A truck, it sounds like, lost some fluid. The gas station couldn't handle it, so they called the fire department for a response. So obviously, no matter what it is, you shouldn't put anything in the storm drain, let alone oil dry that's been soaking up whatever fluid was spilled. I heard a couple of different things. Anyway, it led me to want to check on our emergency response policy. Kim, was that finalized or still draft? Do you know? Or David?
Our emergency response plan, that's the one I brought up about a year ago, that's like 10 to 15 years old, and we were supposed to be updating it or looking at updating it.
Yeah, I feel like we really want to bring that back up and let's have those sorts of things properly defined. It does sound like they maybe got some additional help. I saw that the spill company that was hired eventually called in a report to the state about the incident, which is what you are supposed to do. And they put out some boom in the stream to collect the residuals that made its way into the storm sewer. So it looks like maybe eventually the right thing happened, but it sounds like maybe there was that delay, and some education with our fire department might be necessary. So understanding that the fire department rests with the township, the only sort of method I could think of was our emergency response plan and how we might define those roles and have a better idea of what response activities might be. And this is years and years ago, but I have heard of various incidents in the village specifically where the fire department has responded by flushing gasoline into the storm sewer system or other cleanup methods that are not proper. So it's probably time to dust off that draft plan and just see where we're at and maybe engage with the fire department and have some of those conversations. I work with them all the time, and oftentimes it's just not knowing what to do. So I think it's good to get those procedures hammered out, because this drain belongs to MDOT, but other drains in the village belong to us, and anything that comes out of the drains, we bear some responsibility for. For instance, if you put a bunch of oil dry into the storm sewer system, a lot of times that's going to get caught up in the sumps, and we have to go and clean it out anyway. So we just want to make sure we're cleaning things up properly.
Do you know what that is? What that consists of? Doing things properly. What should they be doing instead?
Yeah, the first response should have been, if we don't have the equipment and the capability to respond. Some fire departments have a hazmat team. They have boom on the trucks. They do this a lot. Others don't. So it just depends on what capabilities you have. And if it exceeds your capabilities, you need to call someone in.
We don't know whether our fire department or the township fire department has those capabilities.
Right, yeah,
We don't know the answer to it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
We should probably find out.
I only know what I saw.
Right, yeah. Mhm.
Driving by at 35 miles an hour. So I could have gotten the wrong impression, but I don't think so. I see a lot of oil drag.
So it puts it on the radar, and then I guess it's worth following up on, do we or don't we? And if we don't, then.
And I want to help keep them out of trouble too. You know,
Yeah. Mhm.
you make a spill worse. That's not great.
Mhm.
Should be trying to make it better.
Should have response protocol though.
Should, but maybe it's a training issue. So we'll see. That's all I have.
I just want to thank everybody again for all the education that you guys have provided, and you know, it was a wonderful thing for me to be on the council. But I also wanted to say that at some point somebody's going to have to be on the park board, and the park needs help. And we've got the music in the park starting next week, and it's an excellent list of bands that are coming, and the Lions are going to be providing some snacks and refreshments, but there's also this year's food trucks coming to a couple of the music in the parks. So, but Roberta, she is a great reference, whoever is on the park board. She's very knowledgeable about everything going on with that. And we do have rentals, and we do have to inspect the park after a rental to make sure that people can get their deposit back if they've kept everything clean and things like that. And that's what I've been doing for all these years with everything. So I find it rewarding because it's nice to check on the park. I sometimes do it on my way to work. So I'll pull up at like 5:30 in the morning, and the park's all quiet, but the deer are there. The deer are like, did you bring breakfast? But it's nice and quiet and peaceful, and you're hearing the birds, and you know, we like to keep that park good.
Yeah. So to piggyback on that, Jackie, is one of the things I temporarily, sat in on the park board while we, had a vacancy. And it astounded me how much work the park board does as volunteers, where I think other communities may have staff that do things like take care of the finances or, the rentals and go check the park, unlock the bathrooms. And
Right.
I know that's a lot of volunteer work. And so a seat on the board is not just, oh, you come and make decisions.
Right.
There's-
It's not just something you think about once a month for an hour.
Yeah,
There's a lot
work.
that goes into that. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of other communities that have paid employees that are on the
Yes.
park board.
Yeah.
And they take care of everything. But we are volunteer here and, everybody works hard on the park board.
Yeah, it kind of leads me to think that we might need to look in that direction for stability and to ensure that things get done is having some type of employee part-time or make it part of some duties, because it's a lot to ask people to volunteer. We know we always have shortages of volunteers, and people are busy.
Yeah, they certainly are. Everybody's got their families and everything to take care of.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just want, whoever takes over with the park, it's kind of like my baby. I care about everything with her. So, but,
Yes, thank you.
but
for
thank
that.
you again.
Do you and Bernie plan to still be participating in the Lions organization?
Yes. Yeah, we definitely will stay with the Lions. And like right now, we're working with they got a golf outing. And we're working with that and things, and as well as the Heritage Festival and things like that. Yeah, we're still very active with the Lions. Yeah, they keep us busy.
Yeah.
If you don't show up for a Lions meeting, they volunteer you for things. So you always want to go to a meeting. Yeah, you always want to be
That's
in a
a
meeting.
classic.
Yes.
Nice.
That's what Josh Sender said, because he said, I wasn't at one meeting, and he says, ever since then, I've been the Easter Bunny. So, yeah.
That's
Which
great.
I've seen him wearing the Easter bunny costume, cutting my lawn at the office, so.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good meeting, everyone. We're at a position now, I think we need a motion to go into closed session.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we enter a closed session in accordance with Section 8, State of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, Virginia Public Act 267, 1976, for a strategy and negotiation sessions in connection with negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement.
Motion by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember Feldman, to enter into closed session. Any further discussion about that? Roll call?
Glasser?
Aye.
Steffler?
Hi.
Dyke? Kolka?
Aye.
Feldman?
Aye.
Schneider?
Aye. Unanimously approved, and we are going into closed session.